A week before her big day, I caught my spoiled little sister locking lips with my boyfriend. I ended up telling her fiancé, thinking he brushed it off, but the way he handled it at the wedding stunned everyone. So here I was, a 29-year-old woman stuck in one hell of a situation involving my 25-year-old sister and the guy I'd been dating, who was 30 at the time. As her wedding day crept closer, I started noticing something off about the way she acted around my boyfriend. It wasn't anything super obvious at first, just little things that didn't sit right with me. Like how she'd always giggle at his jokes even when they were honestly kind of lame. She'd blurt out stuff like, "Oh my God, you're so funny," over the dumbest things, and it felt weird. The way she laughed was just too much, over the top, and a little too eager. I tried brushing it off at first. I figured maybe she was just caught up in all the wedding excitement and being extra friendly. But the more time passed, the harder it became to ignore. She started doing this thing where she'd casually touch him, like resting her hand on his arm during a chat or bumping into him accidentally as she walked by. They were small gestures, but they weren't innocent. Not to me. And the way she looked at him when he wasn't paying attention? Her eyes lingered just a little too long. It made my stomach turn. Then came the night we got home from a family dinner. My sister had been extra flirty that evening, and I couldn't pretend not to notice anymore. I turned to my boyfriend and asked, "Did you see how Lily was acting tonight?" He looked puzzled and said, "What are you talking about?" So I told him about the weirdly enthusiastic laughing, the unnecessary touching, and those long glances she kept sneaking at him. He listened quietly, then gave me a shrug and said, "I think you're reading into it too much. She's just excited about the wedding, that's all. It's harmless." But it didn't feel harmless. Not even close. No matter how many times he tried to calm me down, I couldn't shake the unease that had settled in my gut. Something didn't feel right, and I decided I needed to pay more attention just in case I wasn't imagining it after all. The following weeks were tense, to say the least. Every time we were around Lily, I found myself watching her like a hawk. And sure enough, she kept gravitating toward my boyfriend every chance she got. She always seemed to grab the seat next to him and had a million excuses for why she needed his help with wedding stuff, even if I was literally standing right there. Then one day, we were at my parents' place for a barbecue and everything changed. I had stepped inside for just a minute to use the bathroom, and when I came back out, what I saw made my heart drop. Lily and my boyfriend were tucked away in a quiet corner of the yard, whispering and standing way too close. She was giggling like a schoolgirl, and it made my skin crawl. The second they saw me, they jumped apart. She walked off like nothing had happened. My whole body flooded with this mix of nausea and fury, but I kept it together. I didn't want to start a family drama right there in front of everyone. I waited until we got home. Once we were alone, I brought it up as calmly as I could manage. I asked him what they had been talking about earlier in the yard. He looked surprised and said it was just wedding stuff, music choices or something. But that explanation didn't cut it. I asked him why they needed to be practically nose-to-nose for a conversation about playlists. He sighed, clearly annoyed, and brushed it off again. He told me, just like before, that she was being friendly and I was overreacting. That's when I snapped. I told him flat out that Lily was basically throwing herself at him and he wasn't doing a damn thing to stop it. He looked hurt and asked what I wanted him to do, remind me that she was my sister and he was only trying to be polite. In his eyes, setting firm boundaries would have been awkward, even disrespectful. I told him it didn't have to be awkward, he just needed to make it clear he wasn't interested. That's it. But he doubled down, saying he never gave her any reason to think he was and that I was blowing it all out of proportion. We went around in circles. Neither of us could see eye to eye. He thought I was paranoid and I felt like he was blind to something obvious. Eventually, we gave up on the conversation, both of us drained and irritated. That night, we went to bed angry with nothing solved. The next day, it hit me I couldn't keep avoiding Lily. If I wanted any peace of mind, I needed to confront her directly. So I called her and asked if she had time to meet up for coffee. She said sure, her voice all bubbly and cheerful, completely unaware of the storm brewing in me. We met at this little cafe near her place. I was a bundle of nerves, my hands shook as I stirred my drink, but Lily was all smiles, rambling on about flower arrangements and bridesmaid dresses. It was like she had no clue what was going on beneath the surface. After a few minutes, I couldn't take it anymore. I cut her off mid-sentence, my voice more serious than I intended. I told her we needed to have a real conversation. Her expression changed instantly, she looked startled and asked what was going on. I took a deep breath and began to explain. I sat across from her in that cafe and told her straight up I'd noticed the way she'd been acting around Jake, and it was really starting to get under my skin. I pointed out the flirting, the casual touches, and the way she'd just look at him. It had been going on for a while and I couldn't pretend it wasn't bothering me anymore. I told her it needed to stop. As I spoke, I watched her face twist through a bunch of different emotions, first surprise, then confusion, and finally, full-blown anger. She looked at me like I'd grown a second head and snapped, demanding to know what the hell I was talking about. She flat out denied everything, insisting she hadn't been flirting with Jake at all. But I wasn't about to let it slide. I stood my ground and told her that whether she realized it or not, that's exactly what she'd been doing. I explained how her behavior wasn't just inappropriate, it was seriously messing with my head. She laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. It was the kind of laugh people use when they're trying to cover up how uncomfortable or defensive they feel. She brushed it off and told me I was being ridiculous. According to her, Jake was basically family and all she was doing was being friendly. But her words didn't ease the tension, they only made it worse. I could see in her eyes that what I said had hit a nerve. This wasn't going to be some quick heart-to-heart. I was opening a wound and I knew it. Finally, I let it all out. I told her it went way beyond just being friendly. I called out how she always found a reason to be near Jake, how she kept touching him for no reason, and how she'd laugh at all his dumb jokes like he was the funniest guy on earth. I told her flat out it was too much and it was making me uncomfortable. That's when I saw her face go red, not from embarrassment, but from anger. She was clearly pissed off and stunned I'd come at her with all of this, especially so close to her wedding day. She fired back, asking if I was really that insecure that I'd accuse my own sister of something like this. Her words cut deep, but I didn't back down. I told her it had nothing to do with insecurity. It was about boundaries and respect. I said she was crossing a line and I needed her to take a step back. Then, just like that, she stood up, her chair screeching against the floor like it wanted to announce the end of our conversation. She looked at me with disgust and told me she wasn't going to sit there and listen to what she called paranoid nonsense. She made it clear that if I couldn't trust my own sister, then that was on me, not her. And then she stormed out, leaving me sitting there alone, heart pounding and thoughts racing. As I sat there in that little cafe, a part of me started to doubt myself. Was I overreacting? Was I just imagining it all? I didn't have any proof, just gut feelings and uncomfortable moments. Maybe I'd let it all get to my head. When I got home, Jake could tell something was off right away. He asked what happened, so I told him everything, every detail of my conversation with Lily. As I spoke, I watched his face slowly change, his brows drawing together in concern. Once I finished, he exhaled hard and told me he thought I'd made a mistake. He said Lily was probably crushed, especially with the wedding just around the corner. His words stung, and I found myself blurting out, "Wait, are you taking her side?" He was quick to say no, that he wasn't choosing sides. But then he said he still didn't believe Lily had been flirting with him. And even if somehow she had, he thought the way I'd gone about it, so direct and confrontational, wasn't the right move. That left me even more confused and frustrated. I felt my chest tighten and tears started to sting my eyes. I asked him, so what was I supposed to do? Just sit there and act like nothing was happening? He walked over and gently pulled me into a hug. He told me he understood that I was hurt, but maybe there was a different way to handle it. Maybe I could have talked to him more about it first or brought it up with Lily in a softer way. He was worried that now Lily was mad at both of us and that her wedding was going to be surrounded by tension. That only made me feel worse. The whole thing felt like a disaster, and now I wasn't even sure if I had done the right thing. I pulled back from his embrace, looked him in the eye, and asked, "So this is all my fault now?" I needed to hear it. I needed to know if he really thought I was the one who ruined everything. He let out a heavy sigh and said he wasn't blaming me completely. But yeah, maybe I had let my emotions take over. Maybe I'd overreacted. We ended up arguing again, round and round, just like before. Neither of us could see eye to eye. It was like we were on opposite sides of a chasm, both shouting across, but not really hearing each other. Eventually, he gave up and went to bed, leaving me alone with my spiraling thoughts. The next few days were rough. Lily completely cut me off. No texts, no calls, nothing. She froze me out like I didn't exist. Then my parents called. They'd noticed something was off with Lily and wanted to know what happened. I tried to explain, but I could hear the disappointment in their voices. They clearly thought I had blown things out of proportion. As the wedding day crept closer, I felt more and more unsure. I was supposed to be a bridesmaid, a big role. But now it felt like I didn't belong in her wedding at all. I didn't even know if she still wanted me there. Jake was still invited, of course. He suggested we go anyway, to show there were no hard feelings. But the thought of standing beside her, smiling through gritted teeth while knowing she hated me, made me feel physically sick. I tried reaching out, called her a few times, left voicemails, even went to her apartment once. She answered the door, saw me, and shut it without a word. The knot in my stomach only grew tighter with each passing day. And Jake kept saying I should just let it go, that it would all smooth over in time. But I couldn't stop the anxiety from taking over. One night I had a dream. In it, I showed up to the wedding, and as soon as I walked in, every single person turned to look at me. They pointed, whispered, judged. I woke up in a cold sweat, heart racing, hands shaking. Update. After confronting Lily, everything just spiraled downhill. Things between us, between our whole family, started crumbling faster than I could keep up with. It wasn't long before she went crying to our mom, and let me tell you, that didn't go well. Mom called me absolutely livid, practically yelling from the second I picked up. She was furious that I dare bring something like this up right before Lily's wedding. How could you accuse your own sister of something like that? She shouted. I tried to get a word in, to explain where I was coming from, but she wouldn't hear it. All she kept saying was that I needed to fix this mess immediately and apologize to Lily. The pressure from all sides was unbearable. Lily still wasn't speaking to me, my parents were upset, and Jake, my boyfriend or whatever he still was at that point, kept telling me I was blowing things out of proportion. That only pushed me deeper into this mix of sadness, anger, and confusion. A week before the wedding, I decided to go to my parents' house and try to clear the air. I figured maybe if I could talk to them face to face, they'd finally understand. But as I walked up to the house, I heard voices, low, hushed, coming from around the side near the garden. Curious, and maybe a little suspicious, I walked over quietly. What I saw stopped me dead in my tracks. There they were, Lily and Jake, practically hidden behind a tall plant, locked in what I can only describe as a full-on, passionate embrace. Her legs were wrapped tightly around his waist, his hand was up her shirt, and they were kissing like they couldn't get enough of each other. They were so lost in the moment that they didn't even realize I was standing there, frozen, just a few feet away. I felt like I'd taken a punch straight to the gut. The air left my lungs in one painful rush. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, couldn't even think. I just stood there, watching this nightmare play out right in front of me. And then the anger hit. It exploded out of me in a scream. What the hell is this? My voice cracked, heavy with rage and disbelief. They both jumped like they'd been electrocuted. Lily's face went ghost pale, and Jake stumbled over his words, trying to say something, anything. It's not what it looks like, he stammered. But it was exactly what it looked like. And I finally had my answer. Tears started pouring down my face, my chest tight with betrayal. How could you? I choked out, barely able to get the words past the lump in my throat. My own sister, my boyfriend. Just saying it felt like poison in my mouth. Lily started crying too. Her voice shook as she mumbled, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. But I didn't want to hear it. I didn't care. It was too late. I turned and ran, straight to my car, not looking back, not listening to them call after me. I got behind the wheel and just drove. My vision blurred with tears and my thoughts spinning out of control. My phone started buzzing nonstop. First Jake, then Lily, then Mom. One after another. But I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was too broken. When I finally got back home, I felt completely hollow. I didn't even sit down. I grabbed a bag, threw in some clothes and a few essentials, and left. I couldn't stay there, not in that house, not in that life. Before I left, I sent Jake a text, just one final message. We're done. Don't contact me again. Then I powered off my phone and drove to a hotel in a nearby city, not even sure where I was going to go next or what I was supposed to do. With just days left before the wedding, one thing was certain, I wasn't going. There was no way I could stand there and pretend like everything was fine. My relationship was over. My sister had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and it felt like my entire life had just cracked open and spilled out all over the floor. For so long, everyone made me feel like I was paranoid, like I was making something out of nothing. But I wasn't. I was right all along. And now, knowing that hurts even more than being doubted. I honestly don't know how to move forward from this. How do you come back from something like this? How do you ever trust again? Reddit, I could really use some advice. Anything. Update. The shock of catching my sister with Jake didn't wear off, it just sank in deeper with each passing hour. I stayed holed up in that hotel room, completely shut off. My phone buzzed day and night with calls and messages from Lily, Jake, my mom, all of them. But I couldn't bring myself to respond. I wasn't ready. Eventually, though, I realized there was one person who needed to know what had happened: Lily's fiancé, Ethan. With a sick feeling in my stomach, I called him. When he picked up, he sounded confused and worried. He said Lily told him I just disappeared and wasn't responding to anyone. I took a deep breath and started explaining. I told him everything: how I'd had suspicions for a while, how no one believed me, and finally what I saw with my own eyes that day in the garden. He didn't interrupt, not once. Every now and then he'd make a quiet sound just to let me know he was still there, still listening. But mostly he stayed silent as I poured out everything. When I finished, there was this long, heavy pause. And then, in a steady, even voice, Ethan just said, "Thank you for telling me. I need some time to think." And that was it. He hung up. I sat there staring at the screen, not sure how to feel. I had no idea what Ethan would do, and honestly, I was scared to find out. The days ticked by. I didn't hear from him again. Lily stopped trying to reach out, and I started to wonder if maybe she'd somehow managed to talk him into staying. Maybe she convinced him to forgive her. Maybe she still got her perfect little wedding while I was left to pick up the pieces. The thought made me sick. There was no way I could go. I couldn't smile through it, couldn't stand up there in a dress and pretend I hadn't seen what I saw. So instead, I stayed in my hotel, trying to breathe, trying to figure out how to start over. Then, on the night of the wedding, my cousin Chloe called me. Her voice was low, rushed, and bursting with energy. "Oh my God," she whispered, "you won't believe what just happened." My stomach flipped. "What do you mean?" I asked, bracing myself. Without missing a beat, Chloe launched right into it, her words spilling out in a rush. She said that at first, everything looked normal, just like any other wedding. Lily looked radiant in her gown, and Ethan was standing at the altar, calm and collected, ready for the ceremony to begin. But then, right as it came time to exchange vows, Ethan stepped forward and said he needed to say something first. My heart pounded as Chloe described what happened next. In front of everyone, family, friends, probably over 100 guests, Ethan announced that he couldn't go through with the wedding. He said he couldn't marry someone who had betrayed her own sister, someone who had shattered that bond by getting involved with her sister's boyfriend. Chloe told me Lily's face drained of color in an instant. She just stood there, stunned, unable to move or speak. Then, as if things couldn't get any more surreal, Ethan turned toward my parents. He apologized to them, right there, in front of everyone, and told them they deserved to know why I had pulled away from the family. Lily broke down sobbing. My parents looked completely blindsided, confused, trying to piece together what they were hearing. Guests started murmuring, whispering, heads turning as everyone tried to make sense of what was happening. And then, just like that, Ethan turned around and walked out of the church, leaving Lily standing there, weeping at the altar. "It was like something out of a damn movie," Chloe said, still breathless. "No one saw it coming. Everyone's in shock. Your parents are trying to get answers from Lily, but she's just a mess." I sat there in silence, gripping the phone, trying to process it all. My heart was a storm of emotions. Part of me felt vindicated. Finally, the truth was out. People could stop telling me I was imagining things. But there was also this deep ache in my chest, a sadness for what all of this had done to my family. Chloe must have picked up on my quiet because she asked softly, "Are you okay?" I paused. I don't know," I said, and it was the most honest answer I had. I never wanted it to end like this. We talked a little longer, but eventually I ended the call and just sat there, letting the silence wrap around me like a blanket I didn't ask for. The truth was out now, but the damage was done. My relationship with Jake was over. Whatever bond one once had with my sister had snapped. And now my family was in shambles, trying to pick up the pieces. But still, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. Real, honest-to-God relief. Because I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I had trusted my instincts, and even though it cost me a lot, I was finally free of the weight of all those quiet doubts and unspoken suspicions. I don't know what happens next. I know I'll have to face my family eventually. I'll have to deal with the fallout. But right now, I'm just trying to take it day by day. If nothing else, this whole experience taught me something important. When something doesn't feel right, trust that feeling. Even when people call you dramatic or tell you you're imagining things, listen to your gut. Stand up for yourself. Because you might be the only one who will. To everyone who supported me through this mess, thank you. Your words helped me more than you'll ever know. And to anyone out there going through something similar, don't let anyone gaslight you into doubting your own reality. You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You just know when something's not right. And that's enough.